Welcome, everybody. My name is Gina Waldhorn. I am the COO of the Sports Innovation Lab. And welcome to our Ask Me Anything series. We only started this series a little over a month ago, but in just a few weeks, we have really been able to galvanize and bring together some of the most forward-thinking and trailblazing leaders in the industry, from NBA champion Paul Gasol to the founder of the Drone Racing League, the CMO of Spartan, to last week's discussion about bringing fans back into the stadium with clear and armored things. This series is really designed to prompt a conversation about action during a time when it might feel more difficult than ever to think about pushing forwards. But that's what we believe as an industry it's time to do. And as I mentioned last week, we really focused on the evolution of the venue and the venue's role in bringing fans back together for sports. Today, we're going to focus on how we can bring them together outside the venue when they're watching and consuming sports, wherever that may be. And with us, we have two of the leading minds who have developed technology that more than ever is absolutely critical to recreating the entertainment that fans of sports so desperately need today. So we're thrilled to have Miheer and Paul with us from LiveLike and Sceenic, with Josh Walker moderating. And before I dive into their introductions, this isn't Ask Me Anything, so we want you guys participating. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you how you can all get involved by asking our guest today questions. So let me go ahead and quickly share my screen again. If you're not familiar on how to participate. First is to note you are on mute. Please stay there. We're going to have you guys ask questions by typing them into the chat window. You can select to either send them to everyone, so all the participants will see your question. If you'd like to request a question privately, you can go ahead and select to send that just to the host. That's myself or Josh. This is being recorded, so don't type anything you wouldn't want permanently on record. But if you have to jump early, we'll go ahead and follow up with the recording of this session later today. And if you enjoy the conversation, if you want to speak more with anyone at the lab, any other participants or a guest today, everyone's on our Slack community. So you can go ahead and join that. It's free to join, open to everyone in the industry. Join SIL Slack. Go ahead and check that out. So again, to participate, just hover over the little chat icon at the bottom or top of your Zoom. That's going to prompt open a window. You can, again, select to post to everyone or send to a message to the host privately. It'll pop up there, and we'll go ahead and moderate and ask the questions on your behalf. So with that, I would love to go ahead and introduce first our host. Josh Walker is a thought leader and visionary who continues to push for innovation and transformation of the fan experience. Josh uses his very unique mix of right brain, as he was formerly VP of Research at Forrester, and left brain, as he's also a serial entrepreneur who has launched multiple tech companies in the sports and education industries, to lead the Innovation Lab's roster of blue chip clients, including teams, leagues, and brands, towards transforming their business and engaging the fan of the future. Fan we believe is here today, something we call the fluid fan. Josh also stewards the lab's leadership board program, where, just like this AMA series, he brings together the most forward-thinking executives from across the sports world to conduct research and push for change and innovation across the industry. So thanks for moderating today, Josh. And with us, we have Miheer Walavalkar, who is the co-founder and CEO of LiveLike. At LiveLike, he funnels his passion for technology and sports with a desire to build something that significantly changes the way people view sports and live events. Under Miheer's leadership, LiveLike has secured partnerships with the likes of FIFA, UEFA, Fox Sports, and Sky Sports, as well as have created a joint venture in India and the Middle East. LiveLike has received funding from top VC firms, including Evolution Media, Greycroft, Elysian Partners, and the former NBA commissioner, David Stern. In 2018, Miheer was named to the 40 Under 40 list by Sports Business Journal. He is a startup veteran, and prior to his role at LiveLike, he served as Chief Business Officer and then later CEO of UFoot, a UK-based tech startup that provides data capture services to soccer federations and teams around the world. So thrilled to have you with us today, Miheer. And joining us as well is Paul Bojarski, CEO and co-founder of Sceenic. Paul is truly an international citizen and media changemaker. Born in Poland, raised in London, Paul ran MTV digital ad sales in Buenos Aires, Argentina, as well as business in Israel, Chile, Puerto Rico, and Germany. In 1998, at age 17, he founded Skipworth, the first digital record label, which was truly a catalyst for the music streaming industry. In 2013, he founded Say Yeah, the first premium live streaming co-viewing platform for millennials in Latin America. And today he is the CEO of Sceenic, a technology company utilized by companies including NPO and We Love Gaming to power their co-viewing experience in their OTT apps. Sceenic provides highly scalable, reliable, cloud-based video calling to media companies to truly enable interactive viewing experiences. And probably the most important thing on his bio is just 5 weeks ago, he welcomed a new baby girl. So thank you for joining us, Paul, in between trying to catch any sleep that you can catch. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Josh to get us started.
Okay, thank you, Gina. And not to be outdone, Miheer's got the little one as well. He's still a shiny new dad. So thank you both for taking time. As Gina mentioned, this kind of bookends a week for us. It's a pretty good example of how crazy this time is because Gina kept referring to last week and it was actually Tuesday. I think we're all losing track of time. But this is a good week for us to do both of these, which is we did the in-stadium experience, how we bring fans back safely with clear and armored things. And now we're doing the other piece of this, which is how do we make fans feel like they're part of live sports entertainment, whether they're home or somewhere else, hopefully that they can consume this stuff in a safe way. So Paul and Miheer, thank you guys for joining. What I asked Paul to do to kick us off and extend a little bit of hospitality to him because he did do this from London and it is probably supper time for him, is to let him kind of give us a framework for what's going on right now with the watch party technology, because I think all of you need to get a firm grasp on what we're talking about when we're saying innovating the live sports experience. Miheer will touch on his evolution in his company from the VR and augmented reality sort of viewing experience into the gamification work that he's doing now with mobile. And then I think what Paul's able to do is really give us a framework for thinking about what's the difference between a watch party, streaming, video chat, and things like that. So Paul, can you kick us off with a few slides to just kind of set the stage so people understand what we're really diving into here?
Sure. Thanks, Josh and Gina and everyone. And yeah, I've joined the Miheer's Daddy Club as well. So it's good to be here. So I'm going to kick you guys off, as Josh was saying, just to clear up some, I think, misunderstandings. Some people just can't tell the difference between a watch party, watch together, watch with, and watch commentators. So I'm going to just run you through a couple of examples to set the picture for it, literally using pictures, okay? So the first one is watch commentators. And I think this has been around, for a good 10 to 15 years, whether it's on traditional TV or OTT, where you're basically watching a live stream of people video chatting, right? Before it was, they were sat next to each other in a studio. In today's world, they're separated on webcams, but you're just watching them on a one-way live stream. So that's what we call watch commentators, okay? Then the second one is watch together. And watch together has now been, we sort of started that in 2013, that wording and phrase. It's been now adapted by like Facebook use it to describe their watch together. And what it is basically, it's a safe environment trying to replicate your room. So it is with your friends or your family. There's no strangers around. So really it's a safe space. Whoever you would invite on a Saturday night to watch a game over to your house and let them through the door, and maybe let a friend bring a friend, but it's still a close circle, that's watch together. So as you can see here, it's, a family watching the draft. They're sitting around. It's mostly up to groups of 8 people. And then during the draft last week, people started doing workarounds for it. So as you can see here on the main TV screen, you have what you're watching, okay? And then you have some kind of video chat messaging app open. whether it's Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, or whatever. And people are doing hackarounds to recreate that family feeling. And you can see it's about 4 or 5 faces here on camera. And then obviously now bringing it into one experience, companies like us, we've been doing Watch Together, LiveLike were the pioneers of that in VR. And you know, they were the first to do watching together in VR. And that is now on one screen. There's not a separate screen, not a separate app, sync up a TV. It's all on one screen, and that's Watch Together. It's just private. It's like your living room. That. Now, the next one, Watch Party. And we've seen last week, especially during the draft, many confused Watch Party with Watch Together, right? Just because you're watching maybe with 20 friends. Watch Party really is when it's public, right? So just like in the real world, you would turn up to a watch party or a party with maybe 2 or 3 friends, but around you, you're surrounded by people you don't know, right? So you can make new friends out of those groups, but really it's maybe you and 2 or 3 other friends, and then there might be, you know, 300 other people, right? And during the draft, we saw that happening, right? All these families, and I know the photo is quite small, but basically it's just little video feeds of families sitting on the living rooms. They are not friends in between friends. And that's the watch party. And we've seen this phenomena as well last week. If you go on Twitter and type in something like Zoom watch party or FaceTime watch party, you'll see the number of tweets per day per hour have shot up to thousands, whereas before it was in the hundreds. And then the last one is watch with. And this can be watch with an influencer, watch with a player, watch with a star, an athlete. And here, as you can see, a couple of years ago, so you have Jared Goff, right? And again, they've called it watch party. It is a party in a sense, but we sort of called it watch with. So he's there, obviously, the athlete. And he's now watching with some of his friends and then random press and everything. Again, bigger group. Now, how does that sort of look in today's world? You know, various companies do that. And for example, here you have, you know, they're watching the draft on TV. Here in the digital world, you're watching a match like here, volleyball. You have the actual volleyball player. So that's your watch with athlete. He's obviously available now. He's not playing. You watch with, you know, some fans, a commentator, Swiss coach, or here like fans watching with a boxer. So that's it. That's a wrap up between watch with, watch together, watch party, and just watch commentators.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. I mean, again, I think this language is used so interchangeably, and it usually isn't specific to what the goals are of the fan experience. And that's why I want you guys on here. Miheer, as Paul mentioned, you're one of the pioneers in doing this in VR. Do you use that same framework, the same language, the same sort of terminology to think about how you do product design and the types of features you add? Because the types of things I want to do with Jared Goff is very different than what I want to do with my college buddies. How do you think about, you know, your products? Do they align to those fan experiences, or do you try to provide something that's a little bit more horizontal in platform scope?
I think in form of, you know, we've never actually used video in our co-viewing experiences. So whenever we, you know, like whenever we talk about social viewing, co-viewing, our focus has in the world of VR, our focus was primarily on audio with avatars. So, you know, you can customize your avatars, you can have fun with it, 4 or 6 friends. The idea of creating a private group is the same. You know, you bring your close friends together. We've never really been big believers in random 100,000 people sort of coming and talking with each other. It's sort of, even beyond like 10 people, it's in the world of VR, it's hard. I mean, it's hard from many different things, right? Our focus has always been on making sure something that's practical. So even if you wanted, I don't know, 500 people talking together and watching together, what's the UI UX consideration for something like that? What are the infrastructure loads on something like that? Latency, how do you invite people? All of that stuff is far more relevant from our perspective, the way we've designed our platforms. Because at the end of the day, it's one thing to have a proof of concept as a demo video, as a standalone. It's another thing to integrate this into existing apps that are out there. Because if you want this stuff with live video, the live video is with the media companies. It's not on standalone platforms. And so that, understanding how that workflow needs to work, needs to function, understanding the UI UX consideration of authentication flows and DRM requirements, all of that stuff becomes really important. But from a fundamental feature perspective, co-viewing with private group of friends is what we started with in VR. In our mobile product, we have taken a slightly different approach. It'll be easier if I just share my screen as well. I wasn't planning to, but now that Paul has done it, it justifies me doing it as well.
Okay. It's always
you can
helpful.
see,
I mean, again, I think people need to see some of this stuff to get an idea of what we're talking about. So, we haven't really done the show the screen thing in our other AMAs, but I hope this stimulates you guys to ask questions, because what Miheer's about to show you is really important from the perspective of traditional media companies, right? Which is his point about them owning the video. This is not a companion app. This is integrated into the experience. So that takes a whole nother layer of thinking and partnership to make this work. Go ahead, Miheer.
Yeah, so that's perfect. I mean, that's actually the most crucial point about why, if someone asks why LiveLike, that's the main point, right? That this needs to be integrated into someone's app. From a perspective of VR, we were doing white label applications standalone. We were doing everything end to end: video capture, encode, transcode, app development, delivery, all of it. And we found, obviously, that a lot of partners don't want to have standalone apps. It's costly to maintain and promote and distribute. They were always asking us for SDKs or APIs so they could integrate it in their own apps. So what we've done then is we sort of redesigned the whole thing. Rather than retrofitting a VR experience into a native mobile application, what we said is, let's see what are the best products out there where consumer behavior, that has shaped consumer behavior. You have, at the time when we were designing this, HQ trivia was really big. Twitch has been big for the last decade now, starting with Justin TV. So what are the features that people like? Asynchronous chat communication, text-based social communication is an important feature. Interactivity, engagement through digital is an important feature. Gamification, so you can be rewarded for engagement, is an important feature. So we sort of brought all of those things together in an SDK that partners are integrated into their apps alongside live video. Now, two important considerations when it comes to traditional media companies. What's okay on Twitch in terms of trolling and moderation is not going to fly in regulated environments. And secondly, at the end of the day, what the same fan might be okay with for esports content will not be okay for us live sports content. So, the UI needs to be completely different. It needs to be cleaner. It needs to be simpler. It needs to be more moderated and curated. So we have sort of tried to bridge that gap in the product that we have designed. So in the chat experience perspective, so to simply speak, this can be integrated into an existing OTT application where there's live streaming going on. There's synchronization between video and chat. You don't want spoilers in live sports environment, especially, right? Like, what a goal, oh my God. And then you're like, oh, I'm still 20 seconds behind. I haven't seen this. What's going on? Don't ruin it for me.
So let's just pause there, because I don't think that's a very small, technical challenge. And I think you've also said a bunch of technology terms that probably not everybody on this call understands. So that is because you're an expert in this space, and most people are trying to kind of keep up with what's happening here. There's a real power for you to go take this to a partner like Fox or Sky or Turner, and they get to use their own audience, people that they've already have like a subscription product with, they already have in their database, that have already authenticated in some way with their application. So if they already bought a season pass to watch games, those guys know who that is. They've come to you and said, hey, give us your technology. That's when you were talking about the SDK and the API, and let us integrate it into our app so that it looks like it's ours. And then on the back end, what are you powering that they can't do?
Yeah. So
what we're looking at here, Miheer, I mean, like literally speak to the graphics and the design.
Yeah. So in this environment, the video is a partner's video. It's their video player. It has authentication DRM built into it. this chat experience, whether it's private chat or chat with friends, chat with celebrities, ask me anything type of an experience, or public chat, moderated public chat, which is similar to what Twitch is, that's powered by us. This, how do you feel about, do you agree with his response, or like an emoji slider, which has become pretty popular with Instagram and these other social networks. On the second screen application, polling, predictions, trivia. So a free-to-play predictions game synchronized to the live video again. All of that functionality is powered by our SDK.
Okay.
A cheer meter, for example.
One more thing. Can you put this in present mode? Because people have just said they would like to see the features a little bit larger. So not only do they like your slides, they
oh, my bad about that. One second.
Yeah. And Miheer, while you're doing that, the ability to have private chat, meaning like CBS Sports, audience, or Fox Sports audience, is that your goal, which is to let them control that first party data? Or do you also look to Facebook and Twitter and try to allow those conversations to live in this experience?
Yeah, no, look, two different aspects. We do allow our partners, we give them a tool where they can basically bring in any tweets or TikTok videos or Instagram posts that are funny, going viral, pertinent or relevant to the conversation at hand. We allow them to bring that into their experience in an interactive live blog format. So let me break it down. There are three components. There's interactive widgets, which is your polls and predictions and trivia to engage the audience. You have your chat platform, which is your social experience, whether that's private chat or public chat. And then there is an element of interactive live blog. So you're doing your play-by-play commentary, you're doing your, sorry, that's my daughter behind me. So getting a little distracted myself.
That's okay. She can join in, Miheer. And besides, when you said you were going to break it down for us, I thought maybe
she has heard this now for the last 45 days. She has heard this for 10 times a day. So
then you have your future salesperson. Yeah.
And then there is an element of it, which is the interactive live blog, where you have a timeline of sorts, where the results of your polling and predictions stay on a timeline. So even when people come back later, they can see what had happened during the live event. So that's, these are the different types of widgets that you have. You have your polls, sentiment analysis, alerts, cheer meters. All of this functionality is powered by us. That's not, and it's synchronized to live video. So there's a lot of functionality that we are providing, but it's integrated into someone else's app, because that's where the majority of the audience is. If I can show maybe a couple of other things. So this is what I mean by private chat. You can invite your own friends in there, or you can take in your existing social graph. Let's say you have a fantasy game. You already have a group of fantasy created in there. In that case, why don't you convert that group into a private chat inside the live streaming application, not in a standalone application, but inside the live streaming application, because that's purpose-driven chat specific to the content at hand.
That's almost like probably some of the functionality we've gotten used to now, because we've been doing this so much, where Zoom and some of these groups have these breakout rooms where you can almost take a center of interest or a conversation that's happening and say, hey, let's go over here because we all seem we want to be talking about this. And I think a lot of broadcasters are thinking about that, because they have used to date a strategy that's been more like alt streams, right? Where if you want the betting content or the fantasy content, you have an entirely new experience over here, but then that isolates that experience from everything else. So it's really interesting.
And that's the part that we want to have partners avoid. I mean, I don't know if, look, in some cases it might be a sponsor requirement or a specific reason why you have a separate app that's launched to do that. But in most cases, it's because the functionality to have it be in one screen didn't exist. And that's what we're providing. That functionality is exactly what we're providing. And then the last element is just gamify all of it. No one wants to keep answering polls and predictions if there is nothing at the end of it. It's a novelty. So how do you, in order to reduce churn and increase retention, keep the audience engaged for a longer time, and what behaviors you want to reward can be entirely up to you. Are you rewarding increased watch time? Are you rewarding people inviting friends? That's entirely dependent on the business model of a partner. So a DAZN, who is, whether you watch 5 minutes or 500 minutes, it's all the same thing to them, might reward you inviting more friends, because that might lead into more subscribers. But a free-to-play or a freemium product or a CBS product, which is more ad-driven, might reward watch time. So the more time you spend in the app, the more money points you earn, because that's actually driving ad revenue for them. Those are all functionalities that are powered by us, and partners can avail of in their own apps.
Got it. Okay, cool. So we've got tons of questions now. I think you guys did a good job of seeding the audience here. One of the key questions I think that is really interesting is, do you think there's a generational gap between traditional broadcast viewers and some of the functionality that you guys are building with either Watch Together or with some of the gamification and chat features that you just showed? Paul, you want to take that first?
Yeah, so that I saw that was a question from someone in the. So before COVID, we saw larger engagement around sports up to 40-year-olds, right? We saw a much higher time spent, groups of 3 people on video chat watching together. Now, because of COVID, we're seeing sort of everybody learn how to do video chat, right? And that's from 70-year-old people now suddenly doing their first video chat on Skype or Zoom or FaceTime. So we will now see how will that move in Watch Together. Will it? But mostly we saw, for some things, when we power Watch Together for cooking shows, it's a completely different demographic. When we're powering it for reality TV, it's a different demographic. Just like that, reality TV has a younger audience or more skewed towards females. So now we expect, since the world of all ages is learning how to video call and video chat, and as you saw some of the examples during the draft, people were having their own Zoom parties that might have never done that before. So we'll expect to now monitor how will that change on ages. Will there be 60, 70-year-olds suddenly doing it? Will they be doing it on mobile or wanting to do it on a bigger screen? I think Miheer, that we'll see that over the next six months.
And Miheer, do you think that it's actually a generational thing, or is it just that the media broadcasters who run the sports experience just haven't invested in the technology to do it right? I mean, Bravo's been doing this for a while. They don't seem to have any problem getting that demographic to lean in and do stuff like this.
I think it might be a little bit of a combination of both, but frankly, it's a matter of you won't know until you try it out. And, this doesn't have to be like a one size fits all, right? Digital more than anything else. I mean, if you put this in a linear broadcast with overlays and, all kinds of stuff, it might be a little bit off-putting to people because they can't do anything about it. But in digital, all of these experiences are almost like opt-in, or at least if not opt-in, they can be opt-out experiences. You can dismiss this stuff if you don't want it. So there's an easy way to find out, you know what I mean? And now that we are providing something that can be easily integrated, I'd be surprised if people didn't. Everyone uses WhatsApp, everyone uses Zoom, everyone uses FaceTime video calling these days. It's not that, I forget even pre-COVID that was true, especially as Paul mentioned. Now that this is happening and people are stuck at home and are trying to figure out different ways of using this, it's fine. And again, look, at the end of the day, you don't need every single person to participate. This is not a network effects type of a situation where unless everyone's in there, you're talking about creating small groups with your buddies. If there's 1 million people watching and only 50,000 people are engaging with each other, it doesn't really make a difference. And I genuinely believe it's not a generational thing. I mean, maybe a certain age demographic might be a different story. Maybe the younger demographic might think that these experiences they're used to certain different types of UI with TikTok and stuff. We are not even there yet. We're still in the crawl phase. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
So it does. And a few of these questions are similar in the sense of what is the monetization plan around this? When I ask you guys, do you expect that this is designed almost like premium content where it's an upsell experience that you pay more for? Or is it like this almost a buffet of experiences where you come in and you get the basic and you can pay for all these other options that you guys have enabled? Because I struggle with which features do you turn on and which features do you offer, and how do you let the audience almost control what experience they get? So I guess my first question is, you go in, what do you think they're doing? Are they going to hit a paywall and then they get all this stuff, or are they going to get some level of this stuff and then add more features? What do you think it is? Is it a single experience upsell, or is it adding features for, you know, different prices?
So I'll start off. And Miheer, I think, and you, Josh, you know this, but I want to just make it clear to the public, right? Mostly the clients that we sell to, which are maybe cable operators, OTT providers, right? Some have tiered premium accounts, right? So Fubo TV might have a free tier, then might have a paid tier and a super premium tier. With cable operators, it's always like that, right? Now, they often talk about, I don't know if it's the same in America, that they want the end user to go through step ladders. Let me give an example of a cable operator, right? When an end consumer engages with a cable operator and only buys their home broadband internet, they say that the customer has stepped on ladder 1, right? Now, where do they want them to move up next? Get the internet and the OTT or TV platform, right? Now, that's step 2 of the ladder. But what they want them to do is they want them to use the DVR feature. They want them to use the EPG. And the more you use, they call it as engagement points. And they say the more the end consumer uses all those features, the less likely they're to churn. So to answer your question, some are thinking that Watch Together is a paid feature only available to platinum subscribers on the most expensive plan, right? And for example, our Dutch client, which is a public broadcaster, is saying, no, this is available to everybody, right? It's no like, I'm gonna add $1 or €1 to your end plan. So we're seeing both models, Josh, right? Some will say, no, this is the carrot that we might give, you know, only the platinum subscribers that are paying $80 a month. But then you're just going for a very, you know, you're going smaller, but that's a carrot for the users that are on like the medium plan to upsell them to. Or you invite a friend who doesn't have that plan, they get a 24-hour pass for free. Right. So like, for example, a Dutch client, he's saying, no, just roll this out to everybody. No, whatever paywall, if they're already paying for a service, you know, you don't, when you roll out DVR and suddenly you can DVR 1,000 hours, sometimes it goes in the higher plan, sometimes they just roll out to everybody. So we're seeing really 50-50. Cable operators are mostly thinking maybe this will be available to the highest tier, but our OTT clients are thinking, no, let it be available to everybody. Yeah.
Here, monetization strategies.
I think I would say the same. Look, I mean, there are obviously we're talking about 2 different products here, so it's you know, I don't want to say same in that sense, but it just depends on the business model of the partner. If you're a pay TV operator, this might be a value add or a upsell. If you're you know, in the US, for example, a CVS or a Turner or whatever, which are, it's just everything behind cable authentication, this might be a way for you to reduce churn and monetize through advertising, because there are tons of monetization options in here, right? So for example, that's where the gamification bit comes in. You know, the points are brought to you by Coca-Cola, or you know, the utility of the points that you earn or badges that you earn, whether that's to just show off or whether that's to actually redeem, could be coming from a particular sponsor. A widget that's sponsored by a Heineken gives you 5x boost in your points, and as you try to go up the ladder. So it's really like, depending on who we work with, you know, the strategies vary. So and our role here is to support whatever strategy they want.
And everything you just said, though, freaks me out for this industry, because I don't think they know how to sell those programs so much as they know how to sell impressions and ad units, right? So you just described a very valuable engagement, which is, oh, you're going to give my customers loyalty points that they have to redeem with me. And, you know, like, how many of those is worth $1,000? How many of those is worth, you know, $50,000? Where should I package this up, and how do I sell it? As you guys are the tech providers underneath this thing, do you have a preference of what kind of partners you work with? Is it the advertisers? Is it the sponsors? Is it the cable operators that bake it into a subscription fee? You must have a bias in the scheme of things, right?
I mean, from me personally, it's simple. I prefer to work with partners that have access to content. I think everyone else is sort of
owning rights, Miheer? Yeah.
owning rights or distribution or distributors of the content, because that's what biggest. I can create a companion app for a sponsor who can say, you know, a watch party sponsored by, I mean, just take an example, Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever, but without any content. It's a second screen application. Our preference is to work, we're calling it first screen, in which case the first screen is actually a mobile phone. So we prefer this to the biggest utility for this product when it's accompanying live video, whether that's live sports, whether that's live news, whether that's reality shows, it doesn't matter. Anything that generates conversation and chatter, we want to be associated with the people who own that experience. Of course, brands are going to play a big role because ultimately it has to be monetized, and the brands have to be a partner in that. Sort of, they are going to be the catalyst. But my preference is to work with people who have the rights.
Okay. Well, I want to quickly launch a poll here, which I did not gamify. I didn't use your best practices, Miheer. It's just a simple polling question with no reward for answering it except knowledge. So the question is, I grab my phone or laptop when I'm watching live sports because that's already where I'm watching. I mean, I watch my game on my phone or my laptop, or to look up scores or stats with other games, or just get some more information, chat with friends, check bets or fantasy that I'm engaged with, or none of the above. So we'll let folks answer this question and then I'll share the results with you guys. But another question here is, what defense do both of you guys have against Amazon, Google, YouTube, Facebook about offering the same features as yours? Besides your dashing good looks, what's your defensibility in the marketplace, gentlemen?
So the FANGs are competitors of our clients, right? Our clients are the media companies, the broadcasters. FANGs are their competitors. None of the FANGs, like Facebook, won't productize into an SDK their watch together technology and sell it to the Turner or whatever. So on that side, that's how Sceenic is protected. We're also an SDK business like LiveLike. So that's how I see it. You don't see anyone you don't see Google making the Hangouts technology available, you know, as a paid service, enterprise service.
So I'll just summarize that for you. You're an arms dealer to the companies that have to compete with Facebook, Google, and others.
You know what? I often use that analogy. There's a war,
yeah,
and we just supply one-sided, yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, look, honestly, in a way, the big companies are actually feeders, or they are the ones who are actually helping cultivate the consumer behavior that ultimately 100%. These guys, the partners, have to adopt, and we're the ones supporting that. So we're a B2B version of those companies. So there's no competition per se. Look, is there a future in which Twitch and Amazon might productize their Twitch SDK and take it to all the partners in the world? Absolutely. I think it's probably happening in any case, but it's still they are not gonna, just like AWS, it's not like they're holding your hands in it. And a lot of the partners are gonna need that hand holding. That's where companies like ours come into play, where there is not just like take a one size fits all product, take it or leave it.
And while it's an assumption that those guys are going to come into this space eventually, which they will, they've also had a number of false starts in owning or, broadcasting, streaming live sports. So there are others that have a much higher stake in their business. So I am sharing the live results from the poll. 39% said that it's really to chat with their friends. They grab their phone or laptop to do that. And the other one is to look up scores or stats. So let me ask both of you, do you guys partner with like a Sport Radar or somebody that has a live sports feed to pump into a watch together experience, or the mobile experience that you were showing earlier, Miheer?
Yeah, no, we Sport Radar, Stats Perform, Opta, all of those guys are partners. Our widgets, the prediction widgets, for example, you can either have a manual trigger, so to speak. Like a producer is actually, just like you saw the questions and created a poll and you put it out there, the part of that functionality can be automated using data, right? So every time there's a 3-pointer in the game, push this widget out. If you want to create a free-to-play predictions game that's entirely triggered by data, that's definitely a possibility as well. So we're integrating data. Folks like Sportradar are integrating our SDK in there as well, because ultimately we are part of the same ecosystem in a way, because that fan data has to be, the data by itself is not powerful. How that data gets converted into actionable items is where the real power is. So we're partnering with all of those folks.
And I have a very specific question on, do you guys see any sponsors right now sponsoring social distance watch parties for esports or any of these live sports that are, on, whether it's, in other countries, or even if it's the archive stuff that we see? And if so, which brands are leaning into this space?
Sort of like pop drink brands. We're seeing we're in conversations to sponsor influencer virtual meetups. So it's almost watch parties with influencers, and sort of soft drinks brands are interested in that and putting aside money for that as well. Of course, a lot of it goes to charity for COVID, but that's at the moment a real. Can't name the brand, but what's going on that we're seeing, and people others have pulled budgets back.
And so just on that point alone, and it does precede the sort of like microtransaction and e-commerce functionality. If they're using these platforms now for donations and charitable causes, are both of you guys able to collect money from, say, PayPal or Apple Pay or those types of platforms to collect money for these things, or does that have to be a link off your platform?
I mean, it depends on the app that's integrating our SDK.
Okay.
More often than not, there is probably a payment functionality or a payment integration in there in any case. And if required, and there are places where digital gifting is becoming a popular tool that we're working on right now, where you can gift, just like in Twitch, you gift bits to streamers. In the world of sports, you might want to gift to your favorite MMA player, fighter or something like that, especially in the lower tiers where they're not making a lot of money. So, a tip jar, digital gifting, whatever you want to call it, that's where you would need to do payment integrations. And that's, it's the same way as any app would do. You integrate with Stripe or Apple Pay or Google Play or whatever, Google Pay. That's a straightforward micropayments integration.
Yeah, we don't have it directly in our SDK, because it's not a tech. It will be a client that would decide, how that experience is
what they're
it.
comfortable. Yeah, what they're comfortable.
Yeah.
Do you guys see yourselves partnering with gambling companies or gaming companies like DraftKings, FanDuel, et cetera, to integrate those experiences into your apps?
Yes. I mean, just like a Sportradar or a stats data feed comes in, a gambling data feed comes in. So a free-to-play predictions game that's powered by real-time odds. Again, for folks like DraftKings and FanDuel, to be clear, we don't have an established partnership with any of these guys, but we're talking to all of them, right? It's where are the eyeballs? That's the question, right? The eyeballs are where the live video is. So everyone that's building products or has functionality or features associated with live sports, you want to be where the eyeballs are. And what we're saying is we can be sort of the middleware in a way, just for the sake of an analogy, we're the middleware, which is integrating all of these different feeds that are vying for the same eyeballs in the live streaming application. So there are tons of partnerships with third parties that can come into play here. In some cases, in the case of gambling, more often than not, it's going to be an affiliate play. So the odds are there. The free-to-play predictions game is powered by, let's say, DraftKings. But then in order to actually bet, you need to go into the DraftKings app. So it becomes an affiliate play for our partners, because then it becomes not a CPM, it becomes a CPA and all that kind of stuff. So there's revenue share partnerships. I mean, if you've seen the CBS deal, right? The CBS deal with William Hill, part of that is dependent on CBS being able to convert users onto William Hill. And our tools are exactly the kind of stuff that I believe can help CBS do that in terms of transmitting. It's not just a banner ad.
Yeah, so a lot of the gaming industry, fantasy in particular, is driven by cost per acquisition of those users. So the free-to-play games are the pipeline to bring those folks in. We just saw from the poll we did, and it was really what we were discussing at the beginning. Our friend Anna is here from Breezy, and she's asking, what's the persona? And in sports innovation language, we would say, sports innovation lab language, we would say, what's the behavior that you really think is really going to drive the usage of these tools? And we said it was socialization, but there is a gaming aspect to it. When you guys are doing product design, do you have to prioritize one over the other and really go hard after that demographic and that behavior?
Paul, if you want to take it first, if not, I can answer.
Go for it, and I'll add to it.
So when we were starting to do our product design and user testing in the beginning, we were going with the 40%, which is the user group. Drill down the user group to say 40% of the people are going to be the most disappointed if your functionality didn't exist. That's the approach that we were taking when we were trying to figure out which features to hone in on, so to speak. And what we found was really interesting. Between casual fans and hardcore fans, the behaviors were, for casual fans, for example, the socialization was a much more important feature. Whereas for a hardcore fan, it might not be as much about watching with someone, but knowing more about what was going on, or being able to show off your knowledge and compete with someone. So already there, you have two different personas that you have to work on.
Fork off, yeah.
Fork off of. Now, obviously, it's a challenge. You can't try to hit all of them at once. But even within that, and this is where the challenge comes in, because you're going after one app which has age groups of 18 to 65, for example, the younger fan base, even if they're a hardcore fan, they want socialization, whereas the older fan base, even if they're a casual fan, they prefer to understand more through stats and stuff. So you have to sort of strike a balance. I don't know if we have necessarily figured out a magic pill per se over here, but those are the two personas that we're trying to go after.
And Paul, before you answer, can you answer this question also in the context of you guys are starting to work together? So the way that Miheer just answered the question, and we haven't touched on this yet, how would you work with Miheer to do more of that, outreach and acquisition of consumers? Because now you can almost picture both of your technologies in the same place. So
I'll just answer quickly the persona. So when we looked at it years ago, our company subtitle is "Be in the Moment," right? And we looked for the persona of the end user that wants to have be in the moment experience. Now, what does that mean? There is asynchronous experiences, right? I send a text message. That was a great goal. Can't believe he made that header and he didn't get sent off, right? And then someone answers 5 minutes later. Okay, that's not in the moment. So we looked at the market and we estimated it to be about 10 to 15% of people, right? That want to be in the moment and have a synchronous watch together, watch party conversation. And this is really who we concentrated on. So, and just to give you context, so WhatsApp text messaging, let's say that's 100%. Guess what percentage of people video called, which is the synchronous part, before COVID? I mean, I was shocked by this. 28% of WhatsApp's group video calls actively, where we are estimated. So that's being the moment, calling somebody for 10 minutes is really you spending a moment, right? And so this is the personas of our end users, is not the ones that want to take a screenshot of the reaction to a goal going through and then just send it and then people reply later, because that's asynchronous. So that's the persona. Now, we're starting to work together because one of our clients, the Eurovision Song Contest, right? We looked at user groups of what do people do when they watch Eurovision Song Contest in real world, right? And we went on Twitter and people were having watch together, watch gatherings, watch parties. There was popcorn and there were score sheets, right? And a lot of them would put score sheets to the screen and say the 28 countries that take part in Eurovision and they would score them, poll them, and then, that, which is what Miheer does, right? So on top of being in the moment, because we're just a video communications tool, right? We want to see your face, your smile, your cry, whatever, right? But then on top of that, we see that as the video call of Watch Together. We see that as the first step of engaging a person. But the second, you must have polls. You must have private polls in the group. But then sometimes you want to jump and see what the whole world is polling, right? So I want to know, did our little Watch Together group, we scored that we're going to give this many points to Sweden. How does that compare to the global view, right? And that's why, and so I see it like jumping into the town square and getting the feedback from everyone, but then going, no, I just want to be in my living room. We decided to concentrate on the persona of the living room. It's your groups of friends, but I think Miheer addresses both the living room and what's the larger conversation. How did everybody else watching, just an example, ESPN, whatever, basketball, what do they feel? So I hope that answers the question on the persona, and then why we started to approach each other and see ourselves as mutual products, because it's about the end user. And it came from Josh, like literally me doing research on Twitter. How do people, like, I designed Watch Together based on the couch, right? It has one remote control to turn sound up and down. So that's how we saw it. We went on the user, not what me and Miheer want. It's what we're seeing. And this just is being quadrupled, accelerated by COVID. And just, again, go on Twitter and type some of these things, and you'll see the photos of what people are doing to make workarounds. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Miheer.
Well, I mean,
it's really good encapsulation of our partnership so far, right? Like, LiveLike addresses the larger community, but can also create forks of private groups. Now, in private groups, you might want to have asynchronous conversations, which is what chat is, and then you might want to have more live, in, like Paul said, in the moment conversations, which is where video makes a pretty big important role. The reason why a partnership makes sense is because, again, we both are going with SDKs, and partners already have limited resources. Integrating two separate SDKs and then figuring out how those two separate SDKs coexist and how the user flow works. So, like, if I have created a private chat group, how does that private chat group automatically get into a video chat group if they choose to do so? There has to be a level of coupling between our two products, which, rather than expecting a partner to figure that out and then making sure that they actually use the right methodology and the right workflow from a UI perspective or user flow perspective, why don't we do that on their behalf? And again, like Paul mentioned, at the end of the day, it's about the end user, and they should have a good experience, because otherwise everything falls flat. You might have the best functionality, but if your onboarding is not great and your user experience is not great, everything sort of falls flat. So it made sense for us to work together and go to partners with one combined offering in that sense.
Well, I didn't get to all the questions. Terry from We Played wants to ask a whole bunch of questions about non-live content and how you guys could use this functionality in that environment. So you guys promised to go on our Slack community and answer any of those questions we didn't get to. I mean, my full disclosure on this as we come to the bottom of the hour is that Miheer is a client of the Sports Innovation Lab. I talked to Paul probably back in 2015, 16. He was one of the first companies that I reached out to when we were thinking of starting the Sports Innovation Lab. It was always this idea that the traditional broadcasters don't have these skills in-house. And if they do, they think they can build a lot of this stuff themselves and then figure out very quickly the challenges are very complex and dynamic, and users want more than they can keep up with. So having an SDK from a third party that specializes in this kind of synchronous technology that allows for all this to happen in one stream is really, really important. So you both are filling a void now that certainly we've been talking about for a while at the Sports Innovation Lab. And I think you're going to have the biggest challenge of staying product companies, because I see a huge need for services and consulting from both of your groups, as a lot of the traditional players learn from this experience that we're going through right now. Think about how they reduce their dependency on media rights and broadcast models and try to build more of this digital functionality into the live sports experience. So I really appreciate you both taking time. As Gina mentioned, we recorded this, so we'll make sure we promote it for those people who are busy working all day and couldn't carve out an hour. But you gave people a chance to not pay attention to the news, think about something else, maybe even plan a little bit for the future. So thank you both for joining us. Gina, do you want to wrap up?
Yep. Thanks, guys. That was fascinating. And like Josh says, please continue the conversation with on our Slack community. If you think you have an idea for how to recreate, reimagine the feeling of being together with other fans, we encourage you to join our hackathon, which is going to take place May 21st and the 22nd. You can register your team on our site, sportsiLab.com/hackathon. We're looking to recreate the power of togetherness for fans, athletes, and teams competing in a sporting event when they can't actually be there. So please check that out if you're interested. And then join us next week. I'm working on my dates, Josh. I definitely don't know what day it is, where we have a special Ask Me Anything Wise Women edition. So we're joined by Sarah Crennan, the VP Head of Content for Yahoo Sports, and Marissa Daly, the VP and General Manager of Media at the LA Rams, to talk about being a woman, a mom, and a leader at a sports organization during this time. So this is in partnership with Women in Sports and Events, and we're thrilled to be hosting this special conversation Tuesday next week at 1 p.m. So big thanks again to Miheer and Paul and everyone who joined us. Stay safe and be well.
Thanks, guys. And I don't want to rush you guys off, so let me know if you want to jump onto the Slack community, start chatting with folks and things like that. But really appreciate you both taking time.
I appreciate it.
There were a ton of questions.
Giving us the chance.
Yeah, ton of questions. So this was awesome. Thank you, guys.
And nice you did the poll.
The poll was good.
Yeah, the poll was good.
We're flexing our tech skills here. We need to do an integrated Sceenic and LiveLike experience. I think in a few weeks we should figure out how to do that. And what would be the live video though? That would be the question.
Watching the draft.
We'll have
NBA
to,
draft.
Yeah, we'll have to come up with some creative ideas around
We
that.
can just watch The Last Dance together.
Oh, there you go. Well, I mean, that was replayed question. They do want to know about sort of like as people are doing the documentaries and the non-live content, how this functionality would work around that. All right, guys. Join the Slack community. There's over 600 people there. They're all talking about you right now. So jump in there or sign somebody from your team to, answer those questions, because there was a ton of stuff that's sent to me privately that I didn't get to.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right,
Jumping in now.
All right. Be well.
Thank you.
See you guys.